Well, good evening, folks. Welcome to another Stream Team Beekeeping Chat. I'm your host, Greg. Tonight, we've got a great show with the one and only, the gunslinger himself, Tyler Holton's going to be on tonight, taking your questions about commercial beekeeping. I know for a lot of folks, beekeeping is a journey, and you start off with one or two hives, and then something happens. It grows, it gets wild, it gets crazy, sometimes it gets out of control. Next thing you know, you're in a square body Ford with a crescent wrench and a sensor trying to get across the mountains to follow your dreams. And then it seems like just the next day, you're loading up a semi to go out to the almonds. It's a crazy ride. It's a crazy journey. It's going to be a lot of fun tonight talking with Tyler Holton of the Holton Homestead. You'll know him from an interview that I did with him and his wife, Sarah, from the Holton Homestead just a few weeks back. Now we're ready for round two to kind of get into the nitty gritty, really get down to it and talk about commercial beekeeping, what that's like transitioning into a commercial beekeeping scenario. It's a lot of fun. It's going to be awesome to talk about that tonight. Tonight, we've got your lovable co-host, the one and only Brian Koper, Castle Hives. Brian, how's it going, buddy?
Lovable. I like that.
I gotta find new adjectives each time, see which one sticks.
I got it all of a sudden, like right when you said that, I got like warm and fuzzy.
Well, someone just gave us $20, so it must have worked. See? Oh wait, that was you.
It was me.
It totally worked. Yeah. Nailed it.
See? Look at
there
that.
It is. The lovable Brian
throwing money.
There it is. Nice.
It's all good up here. I went over and I think it's pretty much just like last week though. It's ride the wave of feeding the bees. That's it. So I stopped by Lovable Brain. Look at that. That's Lisa there. I stopped over there yesterday just to check things just real quick. I didn't even take a camera with me. I didn't want to. And I think it was like 48 degrees and there was literally no activity out front, but I popped the lids just to take a quick little thing and check weight. And they're in there, but it was just a little cold for them yesterday. So, but we've got weather, at least up here. We've got a couple days of 70s coming and sun, so it'll be good. But with that increased activity and with nothing out there, it's just gonna still be feed like crazy. So, but it's that that's okay. So I do have to get my October dose of the Super DFM on. So I need to do that here shortly, and that'll be about, gosh, I think probably like the 5th month now that I've used that. So kind of getting into a routine, but no, things are looking good. But April, that'll be when I'll know if what I did worked. So,
Sounds good. A lot to talk about tonight. Winter's here. Not this week, but in 3 weeks on the next rip on the Nature's Image channel. We're going to have a bunch of different YouTubers from all across the country chime in for a kind of a pop-on to kind of talk to us about what their winter strategy is, where they are, how that's worked for them in the past. Hey, if you're a YouTuber, if you do live chats or you want to get on, pop on and tell us about your beekeeping, what your strategy looks like, go to our website, nature'simagefarm.com, hit the contact us, shoot us an email, and let us know that you'd like to be included in that pop-on. And we'll gather a bunch of folks together and have just a fun chat. A few times a year, we do the kind of the cruise, the USA, kind of a chat where we bring in all kind of different perspectives. And I really love those chats. So again, if you're interested in jumping on with us for a night, go to our website, nature'simagefarm.com, click the contact us, shoot us a message, and we'll see about getting you on. Let's run down to Dothan, Alabama for the bodacious Bruce.
You guys hear me okay?
Look at Bruce changed his hat out. Is that even Bruce? Guys, he's not wearing a Braves hat anymore. What is that?
Well, I've got this one here still.
Oh, it's always within an arm's reach.
People don't know. A lot of people don't know. I went to BYU, Brigham Young University, and I actually played a little football there many years ago. The reason I pulled for Alabama is because I grew up here.
Front runner. Oh,
The reason I pulled wear the Alabama hat, I grew up an Alabama fan, and I still am a very strong Alabama fan. And I'm not dissing Alabama. I'm not, jumping off the bandwagon. They're still doing quite well, but BYU is undefeated. They're doing really well, and it's an exciting year for us. It's been a while coming, so they'll probably lose this week, but for now, I may go back and forth between the hats a little bit and just do some different things just to kind of mix it up a little bit. So anyway, I'm gonna wear the BYU hat tonight. Go Cougars! And
Good thing your name's underneath your screen, or so we don't forget who you are. What's awesome is some guys always keep a Glock within arm's reach. Some guys keep an Alabama hat.
Right.
It's no judging here.
I've got some other hats too. We got a new group called Alabama Friendly Beekeepers, kind of like Texas Friendly Beekeepers, and so we've got some hats with that. So I've got some different things. I may try to sneak a new hat in there every once in a while, just to kind of keep it. You guys get away with it. Cayman gets away with it, so why can't I? Although that has been my trademark now for the last 3 or 4 years. So, what do I do? But anyway, as far as the bees go, I have. It's just this has been kind of a rough year. The bees themselves, I have lost fewer colonies than typical. Overall, just opening the lids, looking in on them, they look pretty good. This past weekend, I went in every single colony that I have. My goal was to treat for mites. I went down to Tyler Walker's place just down south of here, southwest of here, and he actually, he's a big commercial guy. We talked about him a little bit last week. He feeds a lot. Now, he feeds when he needs to. He doesn't just feed just to feed, but he is always making splits, always growing bees. And so in the video that's going to be coming up in the next few days, he talks about his feeding setup. He's got 300-gallon containers, IBC containers, totes that he uses, mixes up. He does use corn syrup, but it works out well for him. He's made a lot of bees doing that, and it's just easier sometimes for me to go down there and just get a load of syrup from him, and I try to kind of follow his pattern. He's having success down here, and it works well. But I went up to feed. I actually went to Slocum first. My goal was to treat the bees with Apigard. I knew I had some colonies that were a little bit infested with mites. And I ran into a couple of colonies that I've never had numbers that high before. And we could talk about this another time, but I'm almost embarrassed to say how bad the numbers were. And should I say now, or should they wait and see the video?
Oh, I think you gotta wait to the video. It's so bad, I don't think you'd believe it unless you saw a video.
Yeah,
it's one of those videos where it didn't happen.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, just stay tuned for the video. It'll be coming out as soon as I can get it edited. I just started working on it today, but I had a really good day. It was a beautiful day, Friday and Saturday out there with the bees. Just perfect weather. The bees were happy. They were flying around. There's still a little bit of goldenrod blooming around here, but I think we're within a week or two of kind of wrapping it up for the year as far as nectar goes. And then of course we have pollen coming in most of the year actually down here. We don't ever really run out of pollen too much. But it's about to be game on, but I've got the Apigard treatments on them, and it's been good temperatures for it. It's been, it was in the upper 70s maybe. But now today, we had a high, I think, in the 60s today. So it's been beautiful weather down here. And that's kind of what we're doing now. We're feeding. I got to get these mites under control. People talk about Apivar and how mites are developing resistance to Apivar. I had not experienced that. Last year I treated with Apivar, and I was watching zeros and ones. Had a great results from it. This year, the Auburn study, they came down from Auburn, and they said the mites didn't have resistance to it in that 1B yard, and I treated it, and it knocked the mites way back. So I kind of figured it worked everywhere. But I found out, and it's been a couple of months since I took the strips off. Maybe the mites have built back up, but I found out this past weekend that I've still got some problems, and so hopefully that Apigard will knock them way back. But it's not about me tonight, guys. It's about our guests that we have coming in. But anyway, it's good to see everybody. Go Cougars! Roll Tide! I just can't say OH. I can't say the end of that one. So
Yeah.
Right. Anyway, they lost. So what can I say? Anyway.
Well, Bruce, Brian, glad to have you guys on tonight. I think it's always so exciting as so many great folks who jump on and join us. They've been along for all of our rides individually and collectively, and so it's fun. So many great folks are checking in tonight. A lot of the usual, a bunch of new faces, names too. I do want to shine a light onto a comment right here before we get going. because, you know, it's really easy for folks to, one of the most hard things I think for folks to do is to say they were wrong or say that they were sorry. Now, I'm going to bring this comment up here just for a quick second. Philip Montgomery, he leaves a comment here. The last time I was on this live event, I gave a snarky comment. God convicted me of that, and I want to apologize. I'm sorry for that. Please accept my apology. Philip, boy, whatever you think you said, I want you to know, I don't know what it was, but I just want to thank you for being that thoughtful. It takes a big man to apologize, to admit maybe when they were wrong. I just want you to know, no harm, no foul. I'm not even sure what that was about, but I definitely appreciate your honesty and you kind of heeding that call and sharing that with us.
Absolutely.
So a lot of great folks on tonight. Lisa, we got Redfish. Boy, we got Randy, Keith, Lee from Kodiak, Nick Zooks, Greg Strama. Man, the screen, I can't get them fast enough, but man, we really appreciate you guys. Tonight is all about a commercial beekeeping Q&A. So before we bring the gunslinger on himself, if you have questions at all tonight about commercial beekeeping, please, please, please leave your comments, leave your questions in all caps. Sometimes we can't even see all the comments. They fly through so fast. But we're going to try to make sure that we're keyed in on all caps questions. So if you have questions, leave them in all caps. We'll do our best to bring those in to the conversation. But I'm really excited to have on once again the gunslinger himself, Mr. Tyler Holton. Tyler, welcome back to another live chat. Well, actually, it's your first live chat. Welcome back to the rodeo again.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, you bet. It was a lot of fun sitting down talking with you and Sarah to kind of learn about your guys' journey from backyard beekeepers and how that came to be. What a great story. It took a broken ankle, a broken high heel, and Tyler stepping up to get into these dangerous bugs in the box. Next thing you know, the man's loading up semis of bees and working bees out in the almonds. How does he go from breaking a high heel to loading up a semi? Now you're gonna have to listen back to the homestead and see, was it Tyler wearing the high heel or was his wife? Hey, check back on the last episode to find out. But what a great group of what a great couple and what a great story. Tyler, thanks for spending time with us tonight. While folks get to know you, can you tell us a little bit? Let's jump a little bit past the now you're beekeeping for real. Can you kind of start us a little bit in this journey of you're helping out a commercial guy, you're really digging in, making this thing work. Can you talk to us a little bit about some of the big differences between even serious sideline beekeeping and commercial beekeeping?
Well, I mean, when you really start to add the number of bees you're trying to deal with, the biggest thing is time. And when you're sidelining it or trying to make it work like nights and weekends, you really have to be organized and make all your time very, very efficient. And some of that, can be broken down, scheduling and stuff like that. But sometimes you got to buckle down and spend some money. It can be real thrifty and trying to save money to get where you need to be. But at some point, you got to spend the money to make the money. Or, one thing I'm always short on is time, and I'm not always short on money. So I'd rather spend money on things that save me time. I can never really get that back. I can always make more money. So sometimes we were talking a little bit about feeding and systems like that. You can waste a lot of time feeding with like a little pitcher or a little garden water or something each hive, or you can spend the money and save a bunch of time this time of year feeding with like a purpose-built pump or something like that. So there's little things where you kind of have to step out of your comfort zone and buy your time back. There's definitely places you can save money, but you kind of got to go full bore if you're really trying to get after it.
Yeah, that seems to be one of the challenges that we see, as we, as folks, at least for us in our contact, when folks are reaching out for equipment, and let's say they're interested in a few skids of waxed it boxes or a semi load, there's a gap between the beekeeper who feels the necessity to spend $10 to recreate a $1 part, or there's the beekeeper who will take 10 times as long to do something because they want the DIY badge, versus when you step into the game, you realize that your most valuable resource is your time. And to make money, you've got to spend money. And sometimes that is one of the things that is actually holding you back, because you feel like I've got to assemble every single frame. I have to assemble every single box. I have to do all these little things. I have to inspect every box, every frame, every colony, every four-way, every yard. It's all of these little things. And it's just what you said. Dialing in and building efficiency, I think, is one of the hard lessons learned for a lot of folks. And I think that is just something you have to sometimes learn the hard way. Tyler, you talked about feeding efficiency is a big deal. Buying your time back also lets you be way more efficient with the time that you do have managing those colonies. As you transition from, let's say, a 20 to 50 colony operation to, let's say, 100 to a truckload of 400-ish colonies, can you talk to us a little bit tonight about some of the force multipliers or game changers that you found that really made a huge difference and have really helped you get to where you're at now?
I really think, like, even before I had a machine to move bees on pallets, it kind of a slippery slope. I think first and foremost, the number one thing that's going to help your beekeeping is like a flatbed pickup. It doesn't have to be great. Like, my first one was a 1996 Ford F350 Power Stroke, and I put a flatbed on it. And that right there just kind of, it makes it hard to work out of a standard configuration bed. You can pile all your stuff in there, but it's just a mess all the time. A flatbed truck helps a lot. And of course that goes hand in hand with having like a machine to move your stuff around, a bobcat, a forklift, whatever, and palletized. But I say that with caution, because there is a real sweet spot, and you can kind of get yourself ahead of the the cart before the horse kind of situation, where it's a cool thing to want to be a migratory beekeeper and jump into palletized stuff right away. But if you don't really have a forklift to do that, or a bobcat to do that, the bottom boards, there were commercial beekeepers way bigger than us combined. Everybody in this chat combined that were on bottom boards, and it can be done. And there are a lot of pros to bottom boards. You can still be migratory, or at least move them to your yards or different honey flows. So for me, though, my biggest force multiplier was the forklift that I bought, an old gas swinger. And the history behind that is it was maybe one of the first ones they ever put a forklift mast on for moving bees. But that, to me, opened up a lot of doors just to be able to get bees off my property and even to my neighbor's place, starting small. But that helped a lot, because I was lifting heavy boxes this time of year and trying to move them, and I knew my back was never going to make it. And I just knew there's just no way I could do this for very long, especially if I was bringing bees home for the winter, or just, I'm stubborn enough that I would have tried it, but I just knew I wouldn't. There's no way I could get to the goals I wanted by like struggling. So, you save your money up, or you risk it, or whatever you got to do, beg, borrow, sure to steal it. But I drove really far to get my forklift, and I think that's what kind of changed the game for me. But a feed pump setup, I think, can buy a lot of time back. But really, short of that, you just got to have a lot a lot of determination and willing to set aside the time to really give the bees what you need. Otherwise, you kind of spin in circles.
Yeah, Bruce, Brian, I know as you guys, we've talked about being intentional, and the idea is being smart about our time. You know, even if you've been beekeeping for, let's say, 5 years, and let's say the beekeeper, and let's say you're all on hive stands, and you've got, let's say, 5 colonies on a hive stand, and you've got 5 stands in this row, and then 5 stands in the next, and you've got, yeah, real similar to like Brian's setup. You will soonly realize that every step you take with a foot and every hinged motion from your elbow to whatever you're in contact with, all those add up. And if you're trying to get through all 50 in one day, you will quickly find out that, man, if I can take 3 extra less steps here and 8 less movements from elbow to point of contact, those all add up. And when you get to the end of the day, some days you're like, well, that was dumb. I can't get through it because I wasn't very efficient here. But some of those days you just barely get through, and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I am so glad that I was prepared as best as I could, that I was smart about what my goals were in the bee yard, and then I'm not wasting all this time cracking the lids and leaning this over here and that, booby trapping myself, giving yourself room to work, knowing why you're getting inside the colony, but start to to think about every movement of your foot, your knee, your back, your elbow, all adds up. Tyler, you're in scenarios where you're literally hauling bees in the middle of the night. You may be unloading a semi in the dead of night or before the sun comes up. You're loading bees up at night when they're, still and not flying as much. All of those movements really matter, don't they?
Yeah. And kind of going into that idea, one thing that I was talking to someone else about here recently was when I try and like pre-plan all my steps, and I don't know if everybody does it this way, maybe I'm just weird, but like if I envision what my next step is going to be, or like my next scenario, where I'm going to be soon, or whether I'm manifesting it or not, but I would literally in my vision look at the hive tool in my hand, or like how I'm going to crack this box and where I'm going to put the pollen patty and where I'm going to put the mite treatment, or what step I'm going to do that and do that from start to finish, as crazy as it sounds, but from start to finish, and see where in that scenario, almost as if I'm running a simulation in my mind, where I'm going to like run into a problem, like, oh, I can't do it this way because this is in my way. So then I'll back it all the way up, start the simulation over with a little change, and see like, okay, I can make it all the way to the end and I don't have any real big roadblocks. I'm gonna go this route. And nice. So that I think that can help, is just really with intention know what you're going to the bee yards for, what you're looking for, because it can be the gap between like sideline or hobby to something more serious is like, oh, I'm going to grab my beekeeping gear, I'm going to go check some bees, that's casual. But when time is of the essence, or money's on the line, or whatever you want to figure, you're going to a yard with intention, and it might be on a route or on a schedule or whatever, but it starts to become, you really do start to make it a business and not a hobby. And that means scheduling your time and work and just really buckling down. And that can be however your schedule fits. If that's a sideline thing where you just do nights and weekends, I've done plenty of that, and got to a pretty decent amount of hives before I decided just that the scales were tipping, and I'd rather just make that leap into beekeeping for myself. But I think with intention, anything is possible.
Yeah. On the interview that I did with Tyler and his wife Sarah a few weeks back, we cruised through a couple of the kind of the genesis or origins on how Tyler and I met years and years and years ago. So this reference maybe only Tyler specifically knows. However, I just want to bring into the conversation quickly before we move on, because it is one of the most important things that I learned very early on. One of my very first I would say economist, agronomist, farming, and a holistic mindset mentors was Mark Shepard, which totally went by the beat of his own drum and really shook things up with a book and what he's actually done in practice with something called restoration agriculture, and it's turning kind of annual monoculture systems into blooming and budding diversity within perennial crops, specifically fruits and nuts with livestock and animals. A really neat system. And so, yeah, I mean, I know it's a staple for you. When we think about some of these, I think folks who get into that line of thinking, which Tyler and I recognize as a what's called permaculture, going through farming, gardening, beekeeping through a lens where we're trying to create a permanence within agriculture, not just to be with hokey sustainability, but to actually create resilience, regenerating a landscape. You have to start thinking about things within a system context. And so when you look at even your backyard beekeeping or your sideline beekeeping as a system, you start to figure out which things kind of overlap and can be integrated with themselves to where 1 + 1 = 3. And Tyler, I can remember I spoke at a workshop with Mark, and one of the big things that I can remember from that visit is, I can't remember the name of the book that he referred me to, but it was all about sequences. Everything that we want to do is a series of sequences. So for everybody listening tonight, whether you have 3 colonies or 300, every single thing that you want to do, need to do, or have to do with your bees is literally a series of sequences, all the way down to finding your jacket, finding your hive tool, lighting a smoker, getting into the truck, going out to the yard, cracking a lid, opening the box. Every single thing that you do is a series of sequences. And I think it's fair to say that what Tyler just kind of outlined is when he is lining out the day or the yard or delegating whatever duties need to happen, you have to sort through those sequences and start to line those out. So when you get out there, you can actually be efficient with your time, with your resources, but most importantly, keep moving that needle forward all the time. Bruce, as you've grown with your number of colonies and yards and your approach, you've got some colonies that are on bottom boards, some that are on 4-ways so that you can move them. Bruce, before we move on with Tyler, what has been some force multipliers for you as you've grown your operation, into a couple hundred colony outfit?
Well, I like the, can you hear me okay? Something's weird with my,
Yeah.
Okay. I really like the palletized bees. It's just so efficient for me. I do still have some on bottom boards, but not very many. That's kind of the direction I'm going. But that is one thing, palletizing the bees. Tyler, we did some migratory a little bit. I'm just a sideliner. So I think the most I've seen is 52 on a truck with some other guys. And, but just the convenience of that. I happen to have a brother who has all kinds of heavy equipment, and he has forks. He has a skid steer. So I'm blessed to have him able to help me. He doesn't get in the bees, but he can sit in his air conditioned skid steer with the doors closed and let bees fly around. He's okay with that. So he'll help me out, but I've kind of gotten away from the migratory stuff a little bit, but I do love the efficiency of the pallets. I still like those. And if I do need to move them, obviously it makes it easy, but I will say probably the just about, like Tyler said, almost all the, what I would call larger dollar items that we've purchased. Haven't bought a 350 F350 yet or anything like that, but even just the bottling tanks, the bigger extractors, the more automated uncapper, the thorn wax melter I just purchased, all those kind of things really help save on time and efficiency. And those are just some. I also buy things, to save a little money by the pallet. Greg and I are working on a deal right now for some of her ENDURAHIVE wax dip boxes, which, that's another thing right there, Greg, with that product. I can spend a few less dollars and buy wood boxes, but I'll have to replace them every 4 to 5 years, and maybe 6 or 7 out of them if they're falling apart and if you get them painted well. But these ENDURAHIVE waxed up boxes will last 20, 30 years. And so that's as long as I'll be keeping bees. I'm 57 now. Maybe some other people will inherit some of my beehives. And so just all those things. And then like Tyler said, you spend a little extra money. My feeding setup, it's not anything like Tyler Walker, my guy, my friend down here, the commercial guy. Nothing like his, but it is efficient. But I do need to do some things to make it even more efficient. One thing I'm going to do is try to get a longer hose and kind of a spool to store it better, because right now I've got a 25-foot hose, so I have to feed a bunch of colonies, move the truck forward, feed a bunch more, move it forward. And so it's just kind of, those are things that I'm looking at doing. But it's been such a blessing to have that, when I used to mix everything up in 5-gallon buckets and just carry it out there that way. And so, but so many things like that, Greg, that have really helped. I order things in bulk and things like that. It just really helps. And, but there comes a point where you just don't need to be cheap anymore. Honestly, it's just, unless you have the setup to build your own equipment and you enjoy doing that kind of stuff. Sometimes if you're trying to if it's a hobby, that's fine. But if you're trying to make money out of it, you're trying to make a business out of it, you have to treat it that way. And I'm still trying to get some of those things kinked out, that I'm still trying to be more efficient. But I'm a lot more efficient now than I used to be.
Yeah, that's good. That's Tyler, I think, elaborated on that. I think what we're going to find out is we all hit this, once we take the bias of our own styles and limitations, a lot of us, I think, hit the same exact scale hurdles every single time. And it's, how do I feed more efficiently with more volume and faster? How do I move bees to and fro without throwing my back out? And how do I acquire equipment to where it makes sense to keep growing and moving and all those things? Brian, as you've grown, it wasn't that long ago, and you were looking at a complete dead out scenario and reset, and have grown back up. And every year there's always something that you learn.
Mm-hmm.
What has been something that's helped you, even at, I would consider, I guess, where you're at this year is small sideliner, serious hobbyist scale. What has been some things that have helped you be efficient, even at smaller scale?
Oh man, standardizing across the board.
That's a good one.
I've said it before. Like, I used to look out, and just so that Tyler knows the size of my operation, like I've always tried to stay in like the hobbyist realm. Most colonies I've ever had is around 20, and I realized at that time, for what I wanted, that was too many. But my comfort is 10 to 15 or so, and I'm fine. Now at that scale, I learned that how I had my operation set up, I would literally, just for 10 to 15 hives, I would have to have a notepad and look out into my yard and jot down how many 8 frames, how many 10 frames. If it was time to feed, I had like 4 or so different style feeders. I had quart jars with these little things that I made. I had some top feeders. I had a couple buckets. I had this, that, and everything. And I quickly realized that while each of those worked, having all of them combined made my operation not work, just because there was too much. So I simplified things and I standardized all my equipment across the board. And I laughed because the other day I was talking to Greg and I told him, I said, my yard looks exactly like his yard now, just because I have wax boxes. I eliminated, in the wintertime, having to sit down and paint. Typically that's the time of the year when you're refreshing equipment and doing that. So standardized all my boxes. So I'm going to all 10 frames, all waxed equipment. I'm switching over, and I think everything now they're storing halves. So it's just one deep. So that really helped out. That way, when I do my inspections, everything is so fast. But having everything standardized for me, even at my scale, was a huge help. Huge help.
That's a good one. That's one we tend to breeze over, because you forget going back all the 3 framers and 5 framers and 8 framers and 10 framers and this and that and the different lids and you kind of forget about that. But Tyler, at what point did you? I'm sure at some point you had to do the same thing and be uniform and consistent with the style of equipment. What at what point in your journey did that happen, and what did you see as a gain from it?
Well, I don't know, because I kind of went crazy right at the beginning. Like, I just knew, like, I only had 2 packages start, and I pretty much begged somebody to take them to California for me that year. And so, like, I had built my first pallet and everything, like, in my first season. So I mean, I got the bug really bad. So I think I skipped that phase just a little bit, because I went, like, it wasn't a hobby for more than like 6 months for me. And so I was like, this is what I want to do. I don't care what it's going to take and how long it'll take. And, I didn't know at the time that this would be as big as it was, but I just thought, man, it'd be pretty cool to be kind of like these bigger guys and stuff. And so I kind of just went in all the way, and it made sense for me. Only buy one style frame. Double deep is what's common in my area. So I only had to buy deep frames. I only had to buy deep boxes. And even for a time, I was using deeps as honey supers just so I could get more comb drawn. I've since gone away from that as much as I can. That's just a backbreaker usually, but it still happens. And yeah, I mean, just right out of the gate for me, I think my intention was to just simplify it as much as I can from the start. Luckily, I kind of missed that. I mean, I did get rid of a lot of my like inner covers and telescopic covers and my bottom boards all pretty early on, but that is a big improvement for anybody. Is even when it comes to like not just your standardized equipment, but try and keep all your bees equalized or standardized or somewhat on the same, most of them all in the same strength and age, and, stuff like that. So you can kind of simplify, instead of like looking at one hive that's a split, one hive that's an older parent colony, one that's making honey, and one that's making a new queen. It just, you end up having to have that binder and notebook and stop at every hive and be like, what am I even looking at here? I could have swore it looked different, or I thought this hive was like this. And you can do that kind of intentionally, but just to be as organized as possible with your bees and your equipment, I think will get you very, very far with your time and efficiency.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think it does go back to slow is smooth, smooth is fast. When you set up your yards where things are consistent, and you have about the same size groupings of bees, and the queens are in the same ballpark of age, you're going through there way smoother with a set of actions that exponentially puts you in a better place of growth and knowing what the actual situation is. I mean, a lot of us can remember the days where you've got 20 or 30 or 50 colonies and you don't know anything. You develop a marking system, and maybe it's a brick and it's a certain way that you can look and see what all the colonies are doing. But then eventually you realize, I can't keep cracking the lid to learn each story of each colony. Like, I want to be able to eventually get to the point to where it's a hive stand or it's a yard that are all in the same phase or growth or desire. Brian has helped develop a great tool for a lot of backyard beekeepers, where they can just turn the dial to the thing and they can at least remind themselves that, hey, I'm queen right, I'm good, I'm squared away, this one needs help. Like, that is a tool for hobbyists that I think is great to help build some consistency, more importantly, time efficiency in their setup. Tyler, got a question here from someone who really has done a great job of really beating is a strong word, really, I'll say beating into beekeepers the idea of how important equalizing really is. And the questions from Ian Stepler. Ian asks, Tyler, how many colonies do you send out these days?
So I'm not quite done sending bees to pollination. I sent one semi of 416 out so far, and they went to South Mississippi to kind of catch the last of that pollen flow. that's going on down there, and kind of relax until January, and then I'll send those, hopefully get a chance to like equalize those and everything, which I usually send straight to California and kind of do my work out there in January, and they kind of just sit and have a relaxed winter vacation there. But I'm going to try going to Mississippi and see see what it's like to winter there. I think there is more opportunity for pollen, and when it comes to pollination, especially almonds, they want some unrealistically big hives, I think, for February, and so I'll take all the help I can get, squeeze out a couple more rounds of brood, hopefully. I could give them pollen patties here in the Midwest, but we're starting to dip down into the colder temperatures, and it's just limiting. So I'm hoping as an experiment to see. Plus, I go back to Mississippi in the spring, so any equipment or bees that don't make grade for pollination will be right there where I need them to continue my splitting. But anyway, yeah, so this spring I split up to about 850 hives, and I'm still kind of calling out some weaker ones and doing some last minute combines or knocking out any queenless hives. And I would imagine if I have more than a 20% from the beginning, which also includes splits that didn't take or anything like that, but I would probably say I'll be around 20% lost this year, which sounds like a lot, but it sounds pretty good when it could be way worse. So I'm going to ride that high of losing 20% of that. But yeah. So
is that 20% before just and just kind of yard roundup before you send out, or is that 20% loss coming back from almonds? Because we had a question here, maybe you can tie it in, from Randy Klingen Farms. What is your average hive loss going to almonds?
Going to almonds, I'd say it's pretty low because I've already kind of done my due diligence, and if I can see a hive that's like, I'm more inclined, because I'd rather get rid of it before I send it, and that skips that freight. Each hive costs money to ship, so
yeah.
If it's not going to make money, I probably won't send it. So I would rather, and I don't want to leave any hives here because I leave for the winter, so I just take my losses early. So I really think that I probably see more losses, which is my own combining and stuff like that, before almonds, and then it's pretty smooth sailing. Like almonds are not the devil that they say they are, where they can get sprayed and all that stuff. But for the years, 5 or 6 years I've been going, I've had 0 spray kills. I've had 0 big death experiences out there. It's not the cesspool of disease and stuff like a lot of people want to paint it, but I mean, it could be better, of course, but it's not as bad as what they say. I mean, the bees come back phenomenal. So, I mean, it's hard to say that that's a bad place for bees when the bees never look better than leaving the almond orchard.
Yeah, you're touching on something that I think is the demon in the room sometimes. Do you think that experience is, by and large, the whole of migratory beekeeping when it comes to almonds, or do you think that's your experience? And the reason I ask is maybe you can talk to us a little bit about what this process looks like, because for some folks, they may be getting their colonies to a holding yard that's getting loaded up onto a truck, and they don't see anything back again until they either finding out how much more their feed bill is going to be, whether or not they've made grade, if they're going to get a check back. You hear so many horror stories on either side of that, but it sounds like you've got a more hands-on role with sending bees out to almonds than someone who's just aggregating colonies, sending them off on a truck, and then hoping for the best.
Yeah, so that was kind of the big push for me. I probably only had like 40 hives total that year when I went to California to work for an almond broker, because I heard so many bad things, and then I hear so many good things, and I don't know what's up or down, or why the prices are high, why the prices are low, what it involves. And so I wanted to get some hands-on information. And so I picked up that job, and I don't really think I was I didn't get much of any difference of what someone else would experience in California. Because prior to that, I would send my few bees on a truck if there was room with a local commercial beekeeper. And it was like you said, you loaded them on the truck, and you might not hear anything until they come back in April or something. And you wonder, do I owe money? Are they alive? Like, so a lot of unknowns, and a lot of people do it that way. But I think by and large, the almond industry is pretty straightforward. If you have the opportunity to be more hands-on, nobody's going to take care of your bees better than you. Now, there are a lot of people you can trust out there, and you can pay for services, and things can get done for you. But that still doesn't replace getting out there and knowing and seeing and doing it yourself if possible. And I do recommend, if you don't have those good relationships and you don't have the ability to go out there, it's probably not in the cards for everyone. But it is kind of a case-by-case situation. If you send your bees out there super, super heavy, like I would, because it would be the same. I treated the bees the same as if they wintered here in the Midwest or they went to California, because I want to make sure they don't starve. And so they have plenty of food. The bee population needs to be extremely big, which was what I would want here in Iowa too, so that if we had a long drawn out winter, I would still have a sizable colony to deal with in the spring. Yeah, I think everybody that goes to California has a generally good experience. There are accidents that can happen when it comes to like spraying and maybe mismanagement by the people you hire or trust or whatever. But I think that goes kind of with anything. So
Goes with the territory there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like every year there's a new set of challenges. Last year, it seemed like, at least from what I heard, trucks went out, they got unloaded, they got set, but then maybe they got torrential rains for 3 weeks. Grading happened allegedly a little later than ideal, and colonies that were an 8 to a 9 frame average were all of a sudden down to 6 frames 3 weeks later, and then a lot of guys were complaining about that. But I think if you can, one thing that I learned from a fellow, Chris Werner, several years back, is a lot of those guys they still send bees for pollination to different crops. But when you've got someone that you really trust, and they look at you in the eye and they put their finger in your face and say, "Don't send any bees out to California that you can't afford to lose," I think it's a roll of the dice, right? Would you say that's a pretty fair assessment?
Yeah, a lot of people, I mean, they kind of lied to themselves. Unfortunately, it's like, winter's coming. If I can just get these bees to California, I'll be in good shape. It's like, it's not, it might save you, but it's going to cost you. And it ends up costing you more money to send out a hive that isn't going to make a paycheck than it is to just maybe stay home. Or it's this weird idea that people think that you can load up a hive and it's going to look better in California than it does right before you ship it. And in fact, it's probably going to look a little less better.
Or exasperate, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's not uncommon to hear that exact same thing where it's like, oh, they were 8, 9s, and 10s when I sent them, and now they're like 5, 6s, and 7s. You kind of have to account for that, because the conditions in California, I mean, we're talking Central Valley of California, and if you send them out anywhere from November to January, that's their winter. It's rainy, it's foggy, there's no forage,
right? And
there's millions of bees in that area if there was forage, and if it's not cold enough that they can't fly, so if they fly, they die. That's Ian Stepler quote, but they just sit there it'd be better to kind of stay home probably and have them have a real winter and maybe conserve some of that energy, because they can fly themselves to death out there, and then the hive shrinks. And so if you're not out there looking at them, sometimes it's like, oh man, California ruined my hives and I got taken advantage of, or but every case is different. And obviously grading is a sensitive subject because there is a standardized grade, but it comes down to human nature, and someone else grades your hives for you. And it's very easy to not agree with what someone else is saying. But you're exactly right. Like, only send your best and you'll never be disappointed. And I think a lot of people, when they send hives that probably shouldn't go out there, aren't always as surprised as you would think they were if there was a big problem.
Yeah, that's smart. I think, when folks look at that risk, I think it's, the test and tune needs to happen here in the home yards and making sure that you're squared away. These are healthy bees ready to rock and roll. You're not sending them on vacation so they can get squared away in California. Like, they're going to compete. It's a performance game that they're in at that point. And if your bees aren't squared away before you get there, there's a great chance you're going to be sorely disappointed and at a very heavy loss leaning on that. And I think that's what a lot of folks are constantly struggling with, is getting them out there, getting them into a healthy scenario. And then California, like any other place in this country, God, especially this year, the weather seems to be getting rougher and rougher. You also have the, with any large industry, you always have those that are in it, they're deep in it, and either there is enough apples there for more folks to come pick, or there's not. And so sometimes I think what we do here is some of the bad things about it, or the dangers and the risks. I think I'm not saying it's intentional fear mongering, but what would happen, Tyler, if every backyard beekeeper or hobbyist, formed a little collaborations to load trucks to go to California? Would there be enough places to actually set all the colonies in the U.S., or would there be too much competition to get into the big game?
That's tough. Even it's hard because when you look at the statistics, you'll see like how many hives needed per acre, and then I'm not sure how they calculate if it's surveyed or only strictly commercial, but it's almost every reported hive in the country is needed in the lower 48. So at some point, if something were to happen on the larger scale of the commercial industry, whether people are retiring, thrown in the hat, or large losses, at some point those bees are needed. And that's kind of what I did for the first couple of years. It was a lot of sideliners, a lot of hobbyists. Like, when I wanted to send my first truck to California, I just asked all my friends. I was like, if you can get on pallets and migratory lids, and you send really good bees, I'll load the truck and send them out there for you and take care of them and send them back to you. And so, it's absolutely worked for me for a few years. But as far as everything, the problem in California is that there's not a lot of vacant land to put these bees. That's why I think you're going to see a lot more people moving to cold storage, because there's not enough horizontal ground for bees to be put on the ground. Right now you could drive around and there's thousands of hives in every direction you look, wherever there's not something planted. And the risk right now is we've been super rainy in California, and you can get a fraction of an inch in California and be buried up to the windows of your truck or forklift. So rain, theft, wildfires, and just, I think, general health of your bees is going to see way more people either waiting the last minute to send to California and just take them right off the truck into the orchards, or cold storage, which is the same thing in theory. But there's just not a lot of unoccupied ground that you can put millions of hives, thousands of hives out there without bumping into somebody, and then the bees, suffer at that point, and so do anybody that lives anywhere near, because they find one vacant area and they'll drop a 10-wheeler load or a semi-load in there, and then there's just bees, at every neighbor's backyard. Angry.
Yeah, it seems like here in the next, especially January and into December, going into the first part of January, the Facebook feeds for a lot of us, like I love looking into to some of those social media groups and just seeing how trucks are tied down, and this guy's using ropes, this guy's using straps, looking at the configuration. Oh man, look at that old truck. Like I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so a lot of us look in and are just dreaming and scheming of those kind of things. But here, before too much longer, guys like me will see all the posts where you'll have somebody who just figured out Facebook, who's been beekeeping forever, and it's turf wars, and the posts are like, who is this XY brand of box? They just sat down, da 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 da, and then people are flipping out and freaking out and burn them, move them, tip, all the things that you see in the comments. And so sometimes it looks like it's the Wild West out there. From what you're saying, maybe it is to a certain extent, but it's probably not as nefarious of a dire of a situation. I want to ask Bruce. Bruce is having some technical difficulties here. I'm going to get him in on this. We have a pile of questions stacked up for Tyler that have come in. I want to get Bruce's input on this. Bruce, you've sent some bees out through a broker out to the almonds for several years, and you've had a lot of up and down scenarios with that. I know you've kind of gone in and out with your connection here tonight, but if you've caught some of what Tyler has said, is like with anything, there's risk, there's reward. Bruce, can you talk to us about what your experience has been like, or what the challenge has been for you with getting bees and getting bees back from almonds?
I hope you can hear me. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, let her rip.
Kind of, my mic went out. It's not connecting with the computer.
Wait, there's something wrong with your hat, though. I don't know if you can hear me yet. But
no, this hat it's beautiful.
I've noticed, though, that this is the very first stream that Bruce switched hats and everything's falling apart for him.
He's wearing the Yellowstone. We're talking about gunslingers in the Wild West. Bruce shows up with the Yellowstone hat. It's pretty cool, Bruce.
Yeah. As far as the almond pollination goes, I've done some watermelon and some almond stuff, and man, not at any large scale. I've just had a few. Like I say, my beehives are like the caboose on the end of the train. I mean, I've done the most I've done is 52, but you have to be really careful. And Tyler, I'm sure you know this, but I think I went 4 different years, and never sent that many. But we had issues with the broker this last 2 years. I sent bees. The first year, which was I guess 3 years ago now, or 2 years ago now. Anyway, whatever it was, 2022. The broker was fine. We paid us. Everything went well. Everything seemed fine. So, I've got a couple of guys that basically the three of us filled up a truck, and the other two guys are obviously much bigger than I am. But this year, got everything arranged kind of the same way. The weather was cold. We were in Northern California. The weather was kind of cold and nasty up there, but my bees were stronger than they'd ever been. The bees that I sent, and I think my two partners, the guys that went with me, said the same thing. And got them out there and didn't hear really anything from the broker. And I wasn't communicating with the broker, but my friend was that arranged everything. And come along, a little ways into it, it was pretty cold. The bees weren't flying much, and so we kind of concerned about them. But the broker said basically the bees did not make grade. He sent us an initial amount. It wasn't very much at all. It was like pennies actually. It was a very small amount. I don't want to say how small it was. It was basically, might as well have been nothing. That he sent us a small little token check. And then he basically just said the bees didn't make grade and just didn't pay us anything. And we were lucky to get our bees back. When the bees got back, they, some of them were pretty weak. Even the ones that were full of bees were basically starving. There was no food in the hives at all. And there were some kind of we're not sure what happened, but there were some tricks. There were some things that happened out there, some shady stuff. And I really don't want to talk about what happened, but we have a theory as to what happened. Well, I will tell you one thing was I didn't experience this in my hives, but one of my partners had a lot of new frames in his hives.
Yeah.
A couple of frames in there that were brand new foundation.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that may have happened to mine too. May have just put drawn comb in there, but we feel like there's something shady going on, and so to me, the small scale that I am, is it really worth it? I mean, I got a nice check the first 3 years. Last year I did not, but I could, if I decided to, I could break out a split from each of those colonies and clear as much or more than I would clear sending the almonds.
So yeah,
that's kind of where if you're sending big truckloads, if you're brokering it yourself and things like that. But we had the trucking fees, the brokerage fees, all the fees that came out of it, and we were clearing 120 to 130 in a good year, and you can break out at nukes, and even if you sell them at a wholesale price, you're 120, 130 minimum, maybe probably 150 even is what I sell my nukes for or more. And so I just was like, I haven't sold a lot of nukes, but can I just keep them home? Can I try and keep them healthy? Can I break splits out and sell some nukes? Sell 52 nukes and make just as much, and I can manage my own bees that way.
Yeah, I think that's a great thing to talk about, because kind of what I was saying earlier is you can get down this slippery slope of like, I want to be like them, or I want to be like that person. And
Absolutely.
Almond pollination is like the Super Bowl of beekeeping or whatever, but it's not for everybody. It might be one of those things you want to check off your list once, but guys in the Southeast or in warmer areas, especially the Southeast, I think once you get east of the Mississippi River, you should probably start thinking about staying home, not necessarily for any other financial reasons, but I mean, trucking costs are going up. Almond prices might be going down. It's not the check sounds good, and I think the water cooler talk of like, oh yeah, I send my bees to California and I get paid for them and all that stuff sounds great, but there are a lot of people that don't go to California and pollinate and probably clear more per hive and have way less expenses and keep all their equipment home and keep eyes on all their gear. The guys that can make honey really early or start splits really early, like you guys can in the Southeast, I mean, that's almost a no-brainer just to stay home. You can make honey, you can make a split, you can enjoy your time home. When I worked with the broker, we had a lot of people from the Southeast, and that's how I know Tyler Walker. We did a little business together too, but they were kind of screaming to get their bees back on years when the bloom went long, because they're making honey there and they don't have their bees. And I feel for them, but at the same time, like, you knew what you signed up for when you sent them, is like, they're here from the start of bloom to the end of bloom. And
yeah,
I'd love to get your bees back, because the sooner your bees are back and all the bees are back, I can go home too. But it's one of those things where you can't have your cake and eat it too in some instances, but you can also just skip all those cons of the almond pollination and stay home and just kind of find your niche. If you've only got a few hundred hives, or a few dozen hives, you're probably you can find what works best for you without shelling out a ton of money. It is just a lot of extra work and money just to even get there, and then hope you're going to get a paycheck, when you could just say, I'm planning on selling a bunch of nukes this year. I'm planning on maybe making a bunch of spring honey. Yeah, I mean, I'd love that option, but where I'm at, it's either winter them all winter here, or maybe make a little money with them, and they come back looking so good that it kind of speeds me up to making a better honey crop in the Midwest.
Well, that's the key. I think, Tyler does it all. Tyler's main emphasis is the making of bees, but he's just in business to make. He's a commercial beekeeper now, 100%. And he sends them out there. The guy I sent mine with, we did load our bees at Tyler's bee yard, at his holding yard, but it was another guy, Davis, that I went with, and then David. Three of us were on that truck together, and David actually, or one of his guys actually had, I think, 80 or 88 hives stolen this past year while he was out there. I didn't go this past year, but he did. He tried it again one more time and had those hives stolen. So he's done too, I think now, but I think if you can make it work, if you can pencil it in and if the numbers work for you, if you don't really want to do honey down here, there are, some of the guys in the panhandle of Florida, and they just don't want to do a lot of honey, or the honey actually kind of became less profitable for them for years that almonds did.
Yeah.
But now they're kind of starting to, I think it's always a moving target. It always is. There's something different going on in the beekeeping industry, and you have to be able to figure out, if you're in it to make money, if it's for how you make your livelihood, you have to figure out how to stay ahead of that, or how to ride that wave and kind of stay on top of that wave, because it does change.
Yeah.
They're ripping up almond trees in California now, from what I understand, and so it's kind of going back the other way just a little bit.
Yeah, you got to be able to pivot and find just what works for you, not just what it seems like. There's no book written on commercial beekeeping. And
that's right.
So you gotta kind of fill in the gaps and pencil out really what works for you, and not just what everybody's doing.
It's like you said, it's like the water cooler talk. It's like, hey man, I got 1,500 colonies. I sent them to California last year. What'd you do? That's kind of how it feels like. It's not just in commercial life. It's just people I don't know if people just kind of want to. It's just a competitive thing, I think, and even that's one of the first questions that people ask is how many hives you got, how many colonies you got,
how many did you send to California? It's like,
yep, how many did you send out there? How'd it go? It's just kind of fun to talk about it, but it doesn't mean that anyone's better than anybody else or a more successful person, because I'm a sideline guy. I make pretty decent money, and my main income is honey. And, we don't have a huge honey crop here, but I've kind of figured out how to ride that wave a little bit. And I've got some pretty good clients, got some stores that get it from me. And I'm in kind of a sweet spot working full time and trying to do this. And so, it's hard to add anything else to it. I just got to keep my bees alive. And the pollination thing was nice, but I don't have to have it. Especially with the 52 colonies or 48 or whatever it is on certain years, it's not something I have to have. The other thing, I'm getting a little bit older. I'm 57, which is not that old, but it's older. And so, down here, and you got to start feeding them like in December to try and build them up to get them strong enough to go to almonds. And I mean, you can feed them some anyway to keep them strong and heavy to make sure they make it through winter. But almonds is, as you mentioned, is a whole different game. They've got to be a certain strength to be able to go. And so if you got a carniolan colony that's partially carniolan that doesn't want to build up, you got to feed them like crazy and try and build them up. And it's just, you're out there in the cold trying to feed the bees, and it's just, I don't know. I just got tired of it. In December, I want to just kind of check weight and maybe put some oxalic acid vapor on, maybe check mites or whatever, and not have to be trying to work bees all through the winter. I like to have a little break, somewhat of a break. And so we can do that here in the Southeast. We can do that a little bit.
That sounds pretty good. Part of me wants to kind of do that at some point too, but that's just because I'm in the thick of it right now. But
you're figuring it out already. You remind me a little bit of Tyler Walker. Tyler down here at Choctaw Bee Company, he started beekeeping in 2018, and I think about a year ago, maybe he went full time in the bees, something like that, maybe a year and a half ago. And he is just a young guy like you. He just gets after it, man. He just goes, and he's just doing very well at it. He's sold thousands of nukes, got thousands of colonies, and he just kind of plays the whole game. But one thing about Tyler is he is extremely efficient. He's got a few things that he just does over and over and over again. And he can recognize problems immediately, fix them immediately, kind of like you and Greg and Brian, all you guys. I mean, he's just got so much experience now going through thousands of colonies. You just kind of know how to what may take a hobbyist 4 hours to do, he can do in 15 minutes. He just knows what to do. So,
well, guys, this has been a great conversation so far. Tyler, we're definitely going to have you back on
anytime.
I've got so many selfish questions that pertains to where I'm at in my journey, and questions that I have for you based on that. And I could hog up 3 hours. But what I want to do is we have a stack of questions that I want to get to, and then we're definitely going to have you back on and talk a lot more about some of these main components: feeding systems, treating systems, trucking systems, just things of that nature. I know as we were kind of growing and mobilizing our outfit, I reached out to Tyler probably 2 years ago and said, hey, if you were on the farm and needed to move bees, which machine would you be most interested in? I'm looking at swingers and Hummer bees and skid steers, and I'm thinking I need one machine that is suitable for farm stuff and to do that. And Tyler put me on a super great path for that. That machine's worked out beautifully. So there are so many things that I want to ask Tyler, but I don't want to hog up the whole entire night. So we're going to get to some questions here. Before we do that, just a quick word from our sponsor.
Hi, I'm Greg Burns, founder of Nature's Image Farm and ENDURAHIVE wax-dipped equipment. Hey, as large family beekeepers, we saw a major need to do way better in protecting our investment with our beekeeping equipment from the elements for the long haul. So I coupled our practical beekeeping experience with our wood science background to create the ENDURAHIVE wax dip line of beekeeping equipment. Our unique wax dip process expels water from the wood, replaces and impregnates it with our proprietary blend of microcrystalline wax, offering superior weather protection without the mess or expense of paint. Our equipment is protected from the weather inside and out, preventing box rot, fungal growth, and decomposition. That's a huge savings in both time and money. No more reworking tired, worn out boxes year after year. Our wax-dipped equipment is proudly made in the USA. So protect your investment with ENDURAHIVE wax-dipped equipment. No paint, no rot, no hassle. ENDURAHIVE, built to endure.
All right, guys, if you are going to the Bee Expo in Louisville, Kentucky, January 2nd through 4th, we have killer deals on the best quality at the best prices. ENDURAHIVE wax-dipped equipment, 10-frame, 8-frame, 5-frame, you name it. You can go to our website at naturesimagefarm.com. You can go to the top of the website, click those specials, get those orders in, and we're so excited about that. Can't thank you guys enough for all of your support. We're going to be talking a lot more about wax dipping. As you are seeing, wax dipping is becoming very popular, so much that every Chinese company known to man is sending emails to everybody, putting all these products on wax coated boxes. There are other outfits that are getting into the wax dipping game, but all wax dipping is not created equally. And I want to talk a lot more about that. We're really proud. This is our 4th year in a row at the Expo, providing the best boxes in the industry. We've been there when other folks didn't show up. And so we're really excited about that. Best quality, best prices, naturesimagefarm.com. Looking forward to seeing you guys there. Bruce and Brian will be there. It's going to be a lot of fun. Tyler, we have a mountain of questions for you. I know we've already been on for an hour and 14 minutes. I don't want to keep you on here all night long, but I've got just a couple of questions we're going to throw at you, and then we're going to have a part 2 of 10 with the gunslinger himself, Tyler Holton. We have a question here. This question is so good. I'm thinking there's no way it came from Tom Sauceman. It probably came from his wife, Melissa. But the question is, Tyler, when you set bees out on a new yard, do you have a specific process in the placement of the colonies to reduce drift, or are you not concerned with it?
I mean, I don't really see a lot of drift, but I'm not going to say I don't expect that either. That can be easily fixed kind of on the next round of, checking that yard. You can easily move some resources around, but you can, depending on the outline of your yard. Sometimes I will set a pallet facing one way, the next one is turned, the next one straight, and just kind of break up. it's nice and beautiful for pictures to have like a perfectly laser leveled and lined up yard, but that's where you can get your drift. But even I've noticed, depending, you can do all of the zigzaggy crisscross stuff you want, and it just seems one end or the other might catch or lose a few bees, but they don't continuously do that. I've noticed, maybe the first time they're in that yard, because they all hit the air for their orientation, they might settle out a little differently. But when you start to see drift happen worse and worse over time, it's usually because all your equipment might be the same color and too close together or too similar in orientation. So that's where breaking it up can be a big benefit, and just kind of changing the color up on your hives does make a big difference.
When you're setting those, if you're quarter turning where you got your entrances opposed as you set those, are you lining that entire row out one by one, and they only can get peeled off the same way they got peeled back on? You're not leaving 8 feet or 10 feet between the pallets so you can squeeze in with a machine to pick and pull, right?
No, if you do it right, you kind of always pick up and put down in the same in each yard. So you would just do it in reverse. And so it's just the same fluid motion of your machine as you like pivot or turn. You would do the same as you
makes
pick it
sense.
back up. Yeah, in a perfect world, yeah. If anything, I leave a gap. If I do like 2 rows, I like to do like 8 pallets in a yard. So 4 on one side, 4 on the other. That way you can drive between them, or like when you're pulling honey onto pallets, the pallets can go in the middle, and there's a lot less walking between the hives. And when I set my pallets down, I don't really want a ton of space between them. I want to be able to like fully walk around them without tripping into the next one. But that, even that little bit of, doing your little dance in the bee yard, it adds up if they're spread out super, super far.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. As you're working those colonies, Tyler, are you a stand and hunch over top, or are you sit on a box next to each box as you work it?
Depends on the day.
It is.
Yeah, I mean, my spring starts out as single for a lot of it, and that can really wear you out. I'm not a very tall person, but even then, it still puts a strain on my back. I feel bad for the tall beekeepers that work singles and stuff like that. It's got to be a chore, but I will sit on the box, or even turn a lid on its side and sit on that. Or when they're double deeps, my go-to is I crack the box in half, smoke it really good, and then stand it up, so I can get a good look at the bottom bars of the top box and kind of peek down from the top bars in the bottom box, and gives me an opportunity to lift that top box. And I have an inside feeder in the bottom box, and I can kind of adjust that. It gives me a mental note of how much I want to feed that thing. So I'm technically like spot feeding in every yard based on the weight I'm feeling at that time.
Nice. Yeah. Everything you say, I've got 18 follow-up questions, but let's get through this stack here first. So great question from Melissa, not Tom.
I just saw Tom and Melissa. Yeah.
Did you?
Yep.
Yeah, they're
down in St. Louis.
Nice. Yeah, they're great folks. Yeah, Tom and I are cut from the same cloth, where him and I both are extremely good at short story longs. Like anytime we're gonna like it's a matter of context is key. Let's set this thing up. Let's paint the picture. So this thing that we're going to get ready to tell you, you understand what in the world we're actually talking about. Just like it took me 28 seconds to tell you that Tom is a short story long kind of guy too. But all right, great question, Melissa. All right, Gary Stewart's got a question for you. Gary's a great guy. Met him in West Virginia at a conference that we spoke at. Gary's question for you, Tyler, is when combining hives, do you pinch one queen or let them duel it out? Some say if you put both queens in, that many times both will perish. What's been your experience, Tyler, if you've had to combine colonies?
The only time I'll pinch a queen is if she just so happens to be on the frame I pulled up at that exact moment, and I've already decided that I'm pretty sure this hive's junk. I pull the frame, and it's like, wow, it's my lucky day, and I'll pinch her there. But other than that, and even when I worked for the 5,000 hive operation, it was that box gets added to this box, and we'll never think about it again. And it was not alarming enough to even notice that if I didn't make a mark on the lid that said like CB for combined, I would never know, because I would open that hive later and it'd be fine.
Right away.
Yeah. So, but the caveat is we would try and add a bad hive to one that wasn't failing. Like if you put 2 bad hives together, you're still getting 1 bad hive. So, sometimes it would just be adding a hive to a hive that just needed a slight boost, but it would take probably, 5 bad hives together to make 1 halfway good hive. So
Sure.
That's my caveat. But I don't waste any time looking for the queens, because I could be there all day.
Right.
Seems like the harder I look for them, the harder they are to find. And when I'm not looking for one, she'll be on the frame. I pull up every single time.
Right.
So
you got the Sasquatch queens where they're the hide and seek champs. It seems like you just never can find them. It's kind of a unrelated but yet similar question. When you're talking about working bees out in the almonds, that's not the time. I would guess that's not the time when you're grafting and you're dropping queen cells and you're doing all of that. You're doing all of that work on the first part of your season earlier on, before you take your bees out there. When you're doing that for yourself, is it the same thing applies when you're requeening or you've got an older queen? Are you just dropping queen cells into colonies, letting them hatch and figure it out?
Yeah, so my splitting process is pretty much that. If I see her, I'll pinch it. I requeen every year in the springtime, but the process I do is basically you take a double deep and make them into as many single box splits as possible, and then when those come off, you get they all get a queen cell. So if for some reason we didn't find the queen, she might be in one of those boxes, and they'll also get intermixed with hives next to it. So it's a mix of bees, which usually takes care of the queen problem running around in there, but they'll all get a queen cell. But even then, after doing all that work, I've found plenty. Like one year I marked a bunch of queens just for fun, and I did find quite a bit of queens that had made it through that gauntlet of fighting with different hives, bees, and surviving a virgin queen or something like that. And so I feel like she was the superstar and stayed, and she deserved to stay. So I try and batch my requeening all at once in the spring, and that really streamlines my entire year, because if I'm going to take a lot of losses, it might just be because of poorly mated or something like that. But once they've kind of made it from that stage, they're all going to take off at the same pace and pretty much be comparable. Any duds are easily noticed right away. And young queens just don't want to swarm very easily. They're much more vigorous. And so that change right there has made my beekeeping a lot more streamlined than chasing old queens and swarmy queens and failing queens at the wrong time, and just trying to stick with nice, young, vigorous queens.
How do you source your queens?
My friends in Mississippi that I go with, we have a pretty big queen operation. We do them all in house.
What time of the year do you do that? Do you do it after almonds when you get back?
Right after almonds. So as soon as I can leave California, we'll probably already have queen cells ready to go when they hit the ground there. They've been kind of starting that. You could probably start grafting towards the end of February in that area we're in.
Yep. Wow.
I think you already answered this. I think you said you take your bees to the Central Valley, but Todd at Loma Vista asked what part of California.
Yeah, right near kind of the Modesto area or so, maybe up towards Oakdale this year. It kind of just depends.
I don't think Todd's too far from. I'm trying to remember where he's at. But okay, cool. And then let's see, we got another question here from Ian. How do you manage the migratory aspect of your business with your family, your wife, and how do you manage those costs? Now, don't say anything that's going to get you in trouble in the event that she's within earshot.
She is home. She just got home, but I think Ian set me up for this one. But
he knew it.
He knew. It's hard. I mean, I leave the house here second week of January, and I might not be home physically here again till May 1st. It's tough, and it's not that, you know, I leave her behind and she's got nothing to do. She runs the whole retail side of the bee business, selling honey and stuff. So I mean, she's super swamped through the holidays and stuff like that, and she comes to see me while we have the break in the almonds while it's actually blooming. You know, the bees are already there doing their job. So she'll come to see me for about a week or two. And then she's been coming to see me for a little bit in Mississippi as well. So we try and make up for it. But she gets pretty upset that I leave her here in the blizzard of Iowa while I'm in
Iowa.
yeah, in California. But I'll be drowning in mud some years, so I'd trade that for snow.
Yeah, no doubt.
But the cost, yeah, I mean, the costs are, I don't even know. They're probably not even financial costs, but you make up for it as the best you can, you know.
Well, Tyler, talk to us about your guys' website as you're out here gunslinging with bees. I know Sarah's doing the same on the website with the honey. You guys, she does a great job with your branding and messaging and social posts and things like that. Can you talk to us a little bit about all the work that she does as a gunslinger here and where folks can find more about Holton Homestead?
Yeah, so our website is theholtonhomestead.com, and you can kind of see we do a whole bunch of different stuff with honey, and we're in quite a few stores in this area, and you can check out our social media. We're on Instagram and Facebook, and we're pretty active on that. So you can see all the shenanigans we get into. But the girls here, they pretty much run the honey show. They're, you know, honey gunslingers for sure. And that I feel I'm very blessed with, because it's hard to do both. And I don't think that I could be the beekeeper I am and focus on the bees if I had to do both. Honey is a lot of work, even on the beekeeping side, but it's a ton of work to get it sold, and sold right, I guess. But I'm very fortunate to have like the team that we have here, because it allows me to not go to the farmers markets anymore, and I can stay in the bee yard. So
nice. Tyler, I want to have you back in if we can before you head out and dig into a couple things here if we can. If not, you've got an open invitation to come back. There's so much we can all learn from your path is a little bit different. You kind of jumped right into the idea of getting into commercial beekeeping very early on into this. But what I will say, like for us in our story, every good idea that we've ever had on the farm was my wife's fault. Yours comes down to somebody, which we won't give it away, somebody broke their high heel.
yeah,
And that was the cause of this incredible journey that you're on. So folks, I want to remind you to go back a few episodes to the Holton Homestead interview with both Tyler and Sarah. And wow, what a great story that is. Tyler, we're definitely looking forward to having you on and talking a lot more about some of the components and aspects of commercial beekeeping. Just because, you know, the hose reels might look different and the pumps and the trucks and the application, there's a lot of fundamentals that I think do apply at all scale. And a lot of these things are mindset, sequence, systems thinking. And I think there's so many great things that a lot of folks I think can glean off of your experience there. Tyler and Bruce, before we let Tyler get back to cooking Sarah dinner tonight, do you have any questions for him?
I think you've done a great job, Tyler. We do look forward to having you back on again. You do remind me a lot of Tyler Walker. You guys, you know, young and getting after it and doing a great job. And I've been impressed with the things you said tonight. I agree with a lot of them. And I think you guys are doing a great business, and you're an asset to the beekeeping world.
thank you. Tell Tyler I said hi.
I'll do it.
Yeah.
Brian, after hearing all this talk, I mean, I can see. If you guys, we're gonna put Brian on the spot here. Look in his eyes, guys. You guys see it? Like, if you look in the eye, the right one there's a little glimmer. Like, I see this little thing there. Like, if I wouldn't mistaken that, I think Brian's thinking like, man, I didn't want to quit my job, fellas. I think, you know what? I'm going to start. We're going to let it rip. We're going to do it. What do you think, Brian? After all this talk, you ready to rock and roll?
You know, I was going to say one thing, Tyler. It was awesome having you on, but I always tell Greg this every time I go down to his place, and he ends up getting free labor. He's like, "Here, get a jacket or something. Here, come with me. We're going to do work." Every time I leave his place, I say, "Thank you. I never want to do this."
You're welcome. I mean, what do we say to that? You come back every time, and you're willing to dig in and do the work.
I do. Yeah. No, I listen to conversations like this, and on like one end, it blows me away just with everything that's out there in beekeeping. But then I think on the other end, I'm like, I'm pretty content right where I'm at. You know, I still have a love for the bees to the point where there's times where if I want to dig through a hive and look for a queen just because I know there's a certain like striped queen or whatever, and I want to look for her, I'll do it just because I have time. You know, I still enjoy that. But, you know, like I said earlier, I am standardizing some things because time is so precious. But I can't ever see myself expanding to that point. I can't.
Never say never, Brian.
I took that one
Never
too.
say never.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, folks, make sure you check out the Holton Homestead, their website. Check out all the cool things they're doing. Tyler, thanks again for spending some time with us tonight. Make sure you say hi to us from Sarah and thank her for letting us steal you away for the evening. I want to thank all the folks for tuning in tonight for another Stream Team Beekeeping Chat. It is so much fun getting on here and just sharing our journeys with beekeeping. It's neat because all of our journeys are all different. And a lot of what we talked about tonight is a lot of folks get into this uber competitive thing with beekeeping where they've got to get on pallets and they've got to go to California. And now they've got to do this and they've got to do that. But if you ask yourself the most important question, which is why, you can sort through all these things and make sure that you're just not chasing yourself. When you realize that you're the only one in this race, it's your journey, then you're free from feeling like you have to do this, you've got to do that. The main thing is you're enjoying your relationship with the bees, that you're having fun. If it's a business, that you're moving things forward and you do whatever it takes. And so it's going to be a lot of fun to have the Gunslinger back himself and talk a lot more about that on a future episode. Thanks again, everyone, for joining us tonight. A reminder, if you're interested in the best wax dipped equipment on the market, you're going to be at the Bee Expo in January. Check out our website, naturesimagefarm.com. We have some killer deals on incredible wax dipped equipment. You'll love it. We love it. Thanks again. As always, we want to remind you to be the lighthouse and be the change you want to see in this world. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.